So excited to go live with everyone today. I know this is new for me, but can't wait to share some of the information that's out there right now and talk through it. Lots of great new studies, and I'm sure you guys have questions as well. And we're live on TikTok as well. Hello, TikTok family. Hope you guys are doing well. I'm hoping you're bringing your questions to me. And then last but not least, we're going to be live on Instagram as well. So if I move these cameras, it's just because I'm trying to make sure we can see me on all three cameras. Okay, so it's Tuesday. It's noon. We are here to take questions, understand kind of some of the things that you guys might be struggling with or having an issue with, and of course, talking about some of the latest headlines and what we need to be thinking when it comes to those headlines. And one of the things, and I may have talked about this last week, but I wanted to tackle it again. One of the things that keeps coming up over and over again is Ozempic and Moderna and all these medications. How many of you guys have been reading about it in the news and paying attention to it? But it just seems like it is the latest trend. Everybody is jumping on this bandwagon. Everyone from celebrities to your next door neighbor is jumping on taking one of these medications to lose 20, 30, 40 pounds. And there's a lot of confusion about it, but there's so much demand for it that so many of these medications are now out of stock and you can't even get them anymore. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit because I feel like you only hear the good stuff, right? Like you keep hearing like, oh my gosh, I lost this much weight or that much weight, but we're not really necessarily getting the full story. So this is an article from The Cut. I don't know if you guys ever follow The Cut. And they talked about the ugly side of these medications. So I'm not against these medications. I myself have written prescriptions for these medications, especially for folks that are really getting frustrated and having a hard time losing weight. They've already tried basic diet recommendations, they've already tried some of the supplements, and they just can't seem to figure out how to lose weight. So yes, I'm a part of this as well. But full disclosure here, we want to understand what these medications can and cannot do. So they are started at a teeny tiny dose, at a low dose, like 0.25 milligrams to begin with for about 4 weeks, and then they are moved up to about half a milligram or so. And then from there, the doses increase, where you go to a milligram, you go to 2 milligrams, and people see weight loss at different points of that time. But here's what some people experience, which is not being talked about, and this article in The Cut mentioned it for sure. You know, one of the things that will happen is some people get fever. Some people are incredibly nauseated. Now, for some, that nausea passes after the first few weeks, but then kind of continues even beyond that. So that's something to watch out for. There are folks that have gotten super sick, and some that have even had cardiac issues, like an extra heartbeat or palpitations or some of those type of symptoms. There are a few who have developed more serious conditions, and the medications are very honest. Again, for those of you just joining, we are talking about Ozempic and Moderna and Wegovy and this whole class of semaglutide medications that are supposed to facilitate weight loss, and how so many people are hearing the good stuff but not hearing maybe the bad stuff that goes with it. And these medications really do have side effects. So it is something that you have to get educated on. So anyhow, here's in this article from The Cut, this is what one particular user talks about. They're talking about starting Ozempic and saying their doctor told them, he warned me it wouldn't be fun. Hell ensued. They started on weekly injections of 0.25 milligrams with the intention to build up to a milligram when suddenly this particular patient had a lack of energy, nausea, and power puking. And so this idea of power puking, where there's almost like a badge that you're puking because you're going to lose weight at the end of the game, there is a little disturbing to me. It is not good to puke to lose weight, right? Now we're like getting into eating disorder world, and that is incredibly disturbing. So instead of stopping, she asked her doctor to go up on the dose of medication because she wanted to keep her eye on the prize, an unhealthy prize of losing weight loss at any cost. Her doctor obliged, and then she went haywire. She was so sick that on her 42nd birthday, she couldn't see anyone other than her mom. and continued to feel worse and worse and worse, ultimately getting admitted into the emergency room. Okay, now I know this is not going to happen to everybody, right? I'm not saying this is everyone's story, but I'm only sharing this particular story because I don't want you guys to think that this is the magic pill that everyone's been waiting on and suddenly everything's going to be okay. It's a medication, it has side effects. It's really not recommended for everybody. It's typically recommended if your BMI is over 30. Everyone knows how to calculate their BMI, right? It's your weight against your height. So if it's your BMI is over 30, or you can have a BMI over 27, but you have other markers that go along with it. And those markers may include, heart, cholesterol markers, blood pressure, high A1Cs, anything along those lines, right? So no power puking. We don't want that as a strategy for weight loss. We didn't condone it in young children, right? With anorexia and bulimia. We can't condone it now. That is not a healthy way to lose weight. The other part of the story is what this is doing, what any of these medications are doing, is that they are slowly shrinking your appetite. But when you come off the medication, guess what happens? A lot of that weight comes right back because you haven't taught your body that gut brain connection to re regulate in a slow, kind of gradual way so that the weight loss is permanent, right? Who's in it for permanent weight loss? I know I am for sure, right? And I am here to tell you guys, it's no secret. Most of you know I'm 50 years old, but months of working slowly and diligently is what finally is showing some results. It's not quick at all. And I have complete power to go and write one of these medications for myself, and I chose not to. So, again, for the right person who has done the work, right, the foundational work of really trying to get their diet and their hydration and their exercise and their sleep and even their stress in the right place, it's a good fit. It might be something that works. But if you haven't done that foundational work, it is not the right answer for you. So I want to challenge all of you, anyone who's like, I need to lose 8 pounds, or you need to lose 20 pounds, or you might even need to lose 50 pounds. Start with the basics. Let's start by eating every 4 hours, trying to get in 25 to 30 grams of protein every 4 hours, making sure you're not grazing and snacking throughout the day, because we know that that raises blood sugar levels, that raises insulin levels, and then you in turn start to store weight. And a telltale sign of sort of this insulin resistance is weight right here around your abdomen. And this is how sensitive some of us are. I indulged over the holiday and I don't regret it one bit. Did you guys? I'm sure you guys did as well. And sure enough, I'm seeing it right around the belly again. So it'll take a few days to get back on track, but blood sugar and the foods and the diet patterns that spike blood sugar levels, we can't cheat our way out of that. That's an absolute in terms of really impacting our weight and where we stand with weight overall. And mind you, I did work out. I worked out almost every single day. But the issue is that my diet was not where it typically is. So that's where it'll take a few days and I'll get back on track. All right, but speaking of blood sugar, I wanted to share yet another article talking about protein. How many of you guys are scared of protein? You've read that protein will crash your kidneys. It's bad for the environment, especially meat, right? That you can get all the protein you need by being vegan or vegetarian. False. False and false. And that's what we're seeing over and over again. And this was in Women's Health, if you guys want to check that out. I think the article was from last week or over the weekend, talking about the power of protein. Now, this conversation, I promise I'm going somewhere. This conversation is linked to this whole conversation we just had about Ozempic. Here's the deal. Protein, especially meat protein, the amino acids in meat are more bioavailable than those in vegetarian or vegan foods, right? Here's the issue. You need about 3 to 4 ounces of animal protein compared to cups full of vegan or vegetarian food to just get the same amount of protein in your system. So what the research is finding, that this fear of protein and how protein crashes the kidneys is only true for those of you with kidney disease. That's a whole different conversation. That's where the kidney's having trouble processing it, it's building it up. That's a whole different conversation. But for the majority of the rest of us, especially those of you with type O blood, that's one thing we know for sure, You need the protein. The protein is going to keep blood sugar low. It's going to keep your insulin levels stable. It's going to help prevent belly fat. And you can't get enough protein, it's just facts, guys, from eating vegan and vegetarian food. Here's the other problem, that many of the amino acids in vegan and vegetarian foods are not bioavailable. The body's not absorbing them as well. And so you're eating or needing to eat a large quantity of food to get the protein in, to lower the blood sugar, to keep insulin stable, to prevent belly fat, but then you're eating too much, so it's getting stored anyways. So again, how do we break this vicious cycle? So I'm not going to sit here and say veganism is bad, eating meat is good. It's all about balance at the end of the day. Here's where the meat eaters out there, including those in my family, have gone wrong. I come from a long line of meat eaters. In fact, my grandfather had a meat shop in India. That was his business. He provided meat to all the restaurants and stores and local neighborhoods. And so meat was a big part of our life. They had meat 3 times a day compared to, how we think about meat today. But the meat was clean, it was pure, it was fresh, and it was eaten in very tiny quantities, literally like a handful. Not a full steak, not a full chicken breast, not these massive amounts of meat that then in turn make it really difficult for your digestive system to do the work it needs to do. So meat's not bad, we're just eating too much of it. And meat's not bad, but it's just really toxic. It's poor quality. You have to look for high quality meat, organic meats, where again, it's not going to hurt your body, it's going to work with your body. And while we're talking about high quality, I'm sorry, all the vegan processed food out there does not count as high quality. It falls into the same category of processed meats and all the other good stuff. Okay, obviously I can talk forever and I still want to take questions and get your comments. I just want to talk about maybe 2 more things. One was an article about superagers, right? How many people are worried that they're going to lose their brains? This is a really sad story, actually. I'm going to share it real quickly. My dad came over for Thanksgiving, and he has always been bright. He's an engineer, all that other stuff. And this is the first year when I reflect on last year's Thanksgiving to this year's Thanksgiving. He came in, sat and ate his food by himself, did not participate with everybody else, and then wanted to leave. And when we questioned him, we had to talk him in to like staying and interacting with the rest of the family. He kept asking the same questions over and over again. He asked my husband if his grandparents were alive. He asked somebody else, like, where they work, and he knew where they were. Now, thankfully, he still recognizes all of us, but there's been a definite shift in his brain. I think he's turning 80 maybe in January. Yeah, it is his 80th birthday in January. So again, we are seeing the cognitive decline, and it is not pretty, right? And it's something that I think that we've got to start working on early to prevent that decline. So in this particular article talking about superagers, is talking a lot about one of the ways to stay young. And by the way, this decline accelerated when he went into retirement. He went into retirement in 2021, post-pandemic. He was an engineer for Gulfstream. They were doing massive layoffs with everything that happened in the industry. He took a retirement package and he has steadily declined since then. So when we are not using our brains, which is what this particular article is talking about, that is when our brains really do, like any other muscle in the body, start to atrophy, start to go downhill, and we see more early signs of dementia and aging. So for all of you out there, no matter how old you are, pursue something new. Try a new skill, a new exercise, maybe sign up to get a new degree. It's never too late. I love the stories of where people in their 60s or even their 70s go back to school. I think that's incredible. But using that brain is so important. It's so essential for our overall health. Now, I could add a lot more about cognitive health to that. I'm a huge believer that our nutritional chemistry plays into cognitive health. Inflammation plays into cognitive health. And I know what you're thinking. You're like, if I know all this, why is my dad in that situation? You know the answer to that. Family members never listen, right? They don't think I know anything. And that's my dad, my mom, my sisters, everybody. And my daughter too, who recently asked to meet with a nutritionist so she could figure out her eating plan. Because, of course, there's no way mom could know anything of value whatsoever. So anyhow, all of that to say, your diet, your blood sugar, your insulin levels, the levels of inflammation in your body really impact not just your weight, which is the one that we're all focused on, and not just belly fat, right? but also how you think, how you feel, and if you're going to stay or keep diseases far away from you. Okay, that's about 15 minutes of me rattling on. Do we have some comments or questions? Let's jump into some of those. And again, remember, we've got folks on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. Love that I can do all of this with all of you. Wish all of you could talk to each other. But let's see what we've got.
So Janet asked question about water filters like Berkeley filters.
Yeah.
Do they filter out the good properties out of the water along with the bad chemicals?
Yeah, a Berkeley filter is great for any of you that have it. That is filtering out a lot of heavy metals, a lot of the toxins and chemicals. So that's a great option for a water filter. Again, this idea of filtering your water is incredibly important. Our toxic loads are high, and that in turn contributes to this issue with insulin, by the way. I have so many patients that travel, right, or go to a different country and come back and get sick or gain weight. A patient just came from the UK a few years ago and gained about 40 pounds landing back in the United States. And I think that has a lot to do with our toxic load. And the more toxic we are, it puts a burden on the liver, which is going to drive your insulin levels up.
And we have one more question on Instagram with the user Special Times 100. Hi, Dr. Taz. What do you think about 30% food grade peroxide for daily use? I've been using 3% HP peroxide forever for alkalization.
So hydrogen peroxide is tricky. You have to be careful with it. So it's not something I necessarily want everybody doing. There are other ways to oxygenate your body, which is the purpose here. Getting in green smoothies, taking glutathione, getting in a lot of high antioxidant foods. Those are other more gentle ways to oxygenate your body. Folks that are doing hydrogen peroxide that I'm familiar with, are usually patients with severe disease. So I don't think I can throw my hat behind doing it every single day. Any other questions? We've got some other people commenting on how to stay healthy, how to exercise. I saw someone just the basics. I agree with that. The basics are so important of sleep. Sleep, by the way, might be a place for everybody to start. I think so many people are, trying to do these workouts and trying to do intermittent fasting, but they're not sleeping. And remember, sleeping is what helps to calm the nervous system down, gets you out of adrenal fatigue. And so if you're not sleeping well, then we know that your insulin levels are going to be high and you're going to worsen things by working out too hard or by pushing yourself too hard in the process. All right, some people are not happy that I said no to veganism, so we can debate that one at a different time. But again, the research keeps coming back to how difficult it is to get some of these amino acids in when you're on a vegan diet. We see that in practice, guys. I hate to break that to you. Hair loss, fatigue, loss of muscle, overall weakness, and low energy because it's so difficult. You have to be so granular with when you are vegan about are you getting all the missing amino acids. So that can be incredibly challenging for sure. Okay, any other?
Yes.
Okay.
We have one, and they're asking how to help or slash treat children's eczema.
Ooh, eczema. Okay, so kids and eczema, adults and eczema. Eczema is pretty common nowadays, unfortunately. Here's the deal: when we apply an east-west sort of methodology or mindset to eczema, it's actually a disease of the gut. So the gut is the first place to go. Some of the most common patterns for eczema are simply eating foods that you don't absorb well. So for some people, it's gluten or dairy, or it might be corn or soy. Those are the common sort of triggers for eczema that we see over and over again. But sometimes it's a little bit deeper than that, where it's not so much the foods, but you have something called fat malabsorption, where you're not breaking fats down very well because the gut is injured. Again, still going back to a gut-based disease. And that lack of healthy fats is causing breakdown in the skin, triggering eczema. So adding in sometimes some olive oil into your daily diet, taking in a tiny bit of coconut oil. I actually love ghee. That's an old Ayurvedic remedy, right? For all of those who know what I'm talking about. But just a teeny tiny bit of ghee sometimes can be very moisturizing to the gut, helping to heal the gut lining, balance the gut microbiome, and that in turn can help to heal eczema. So with eczema, I would think food allergies or food intolerances, increasing healthy fats, maybe stopping fat malabsorption, and then topically using a lot of emollients to really keep the skin barrier where it needs to be. Now, conventionally, it's a lot of steroids and topicals, but that's not dealing with the inside, which is really where things like eczema and acne, for example, are coming from.
There's another one. What is your perspective on raw dairy benefits? Raw dairy benefits.
Raw dairy?
Yeah.
Okay. So raw dairy, remember, is typically not pasteurized. The advantage of that is that it has the enzyme still present, which then can be broken down in our body effectively. So, again, raw dairy makes me a little bit nervous because we worry about the bacterial load. So I'm not a huge fan of raw dairy, but if you're going to do it a small amount, make sure it's coming from a good source. Dairy in general needs to be watched, right? Many of our children in particular are on a very high dairy, high gluten diet. This is why I think we have so much neuroinflammation in children, right? They have either, ADHD, trouble focusing, anxiety, depression, all this other stuff. Their diets are very inflammatory. Again, not to share another story, but my daughter came down. She's super interested in tennis. I've shared some of that on my stories. And she was listening to a tennis coach talk about a famous tennis player who was able to change his entire game not by practicing more but by following an anti-inflammatory diet. So when she dialed into what is an anti-inflammatory diet, she's 15 by the way, she realized that so much of her day is consumed with gluten and with dairy and with sugar, all of which were now impacting her ability to perform at tennis. So again, really trying to teach our kids that these are the foods that are making us feel bad or maybe not allowing us to be at our optimum is really doing them a huge service before they leave our homes and go to college and all that other good stuff.
There's a question about how do you increase deep sleep?
Deep sleep, great question. Okay, remember deep sleep. There's deep sleep and there's REM sleep. If you're tracking sleep using an Oura Ring or a Fitbit or any of those type of things, remember REM sleep is often impacted by nutrients and hormonal chemistry. So it's a good idea to get things like your testosterone, your adrenals, your cortisol, all that other stuff checked. If you are talking about deep sleep, which is in a different category from REM sleep, that's more structural. So you may have sleep apnea, you may have enlarged adenoids or other things obstructing your sleep. So it would be best for you to see ENT and maybe get some of that evaluated. Good questions, guys.
Let's see. Okay. We have a lot of questions.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's do a couple more.
Here's one. Do you recommend hormone replacement therapy?
I do. So the question, by the way, if you didn't hear it, is do I or do I not recommend hormone replacement therapy? And the answer is yes, I do. Hormone replacement therapy, though, done the right way. Not a fan of big pellets, mega doses of hormones. I don't think those work well. The body actually holds on to them, actually accumulates them, and that, again, guess who that wears down? It wears down the liver, right? And we just talked about the liver being critical for overall insulin balance. I do like hormone replacement in tiny doses, so we're microdosing or we're dosing so that it does reflect in blood levels, but those levels are not super high. And again, that's true for men and for women. All right, we're seeing a lot of men in andropause with declining levels of testosterone early in their mid-20s, 30s, and not feeling good because of it, getting depressed, gaining weight, all this other stuff. And it's all a vicious cycle, right? The more unhealthy the gut is, the more your hormones are going to be off. The more your hormones are off, the more unhealthy you're going to be in general. So getting those hormones balanced is really important, and sometimes hormone replacement therapy is absolutely necessary.
There's another one. How to help heal dandruff naturally?
Ooh, that's
what
a good
is
one.
the root cause?
Dandruff, itchy scalp. Who's had that before? I'll get that from time to time. Okay, dandruff is a sign. It's one to not ignore. Dandruff is coming from a gut that usually is flooded with candida. Candida is a yeast. It lives in all of us, but when we have maybe been stressed, our hormones are off, we've consumed too much sugar or dairy, we have an overgrowth of yeast in the gut, and that in turn can present in many different ways. It can present as rosacea, which is that redness right here in the cheeks. It can present as dandruff, which is the flakiness in the scalp. Some people even go further and say their scalp is burning. Have you guys ever felt that before? It's like you feel like your scalp's on fire and you just want to itch. Others have candida with, classic yeast infections, right? So candida is the most common trigger of dandruff. The other one takes me back to what we talked about with eczema. where it's fat malabsorption. You're not getting enough healthy fats, and therefore the gut microbiome, all those bacteria sitting in the gut, can't stay stable, and they in turn swing in one direction or another, and that triggers dandruff. So I would say fat malabsorption and candida are probably your two biggest triggers of dandruff. Now, so many people mistakenly think that they're not washing their hair enough, or that they're dirty, or that they're sweating too much, and all these other things. Not true. It's coming from the gut, or it's coming from the microbiome specifically.
Okay, I think we have just time for one more question. And this Instagram user asked, is it possible to postpone menopause?
Ooh, I like that question. Okay, first of all, I'd ask philosophically, why do you want to postpone menopause? And probably the answer to that is because you've got all these negative connotations associated with it, would be my guess. If it's not, please let me know. But postponing menopause is interesting. So, menopause is a vital sign, right? Or your hormones, I should say, are a vital sign. When the body starts to slow, we are going to see hormonal changes that lend themselves to menopause. I don't like to say postponing menopause, but not going into an early menopause or delaying the onset of menopause really has to do with your nutritional biochemistry, your stress levels, the quality of your sleep, and the health of your liver. And if you can manage those particular factors, those are the women that don't go into an early menopause, which we define as someone going into menopause in their 30s and early 40s, versus a later menopause, which is usually in your 50s or later 50s. I think the oldest patient that I've had so far is 58, still not in menopause, still kind of trucking along there. And sometimes, again, we can write that off as genetic, but really there's chemistry behind that, that they have the nutritional biochemistry, the sort of the gut health that needs to be there. They have a great mindset, a healthy liver, good sleep, and that's just delaying the onset of menopause.
Yeah. There is one more.
One more. Okay, we'll do one more. All right. Thank you guys for hanging. We've been it's been a bit, so thank you guys for hanging in with me.
She wants to know how to help with hot flashes. She's 73 and still getting them. She can't take black cohosh as it affects her liver.
Okay, so hot flashes, night sweats. Now, if you're still having hot flashes and night sweats and you are far past going through menopause, I would challenge each and every one of you that your gut and your livers are not healthy. There's either something dietary that's triggering it, there is something microbial in the gut that's triggering it, or there is something with sort of your general lifestyle that is impacting it. Because really, they should not be lasting. Now, having said that, there are many herbs that help with hot flashes and night sweats beyond black cohosh. I like red clover leaf. That's a great one for hot flashes. I love using maca. Maca comes as a dropper or tea or even a pill. That's another one that we like using for hot flashes. And then my third favorite would be evening primrose oil, which you can do about 1,200 milligrams to 2 grams a day, and that can help with hot flashes as well. CBD, by the way, I almost forgot about that. Hemp oil and CBD can help with hot flashes too. So that's your toolbox. But I would challenge you a little bit. Look at your diet. Look at your gut health. Is there something going on there? And if so, maybe work there and see if eliminating certain things gets rid of the hot flashes. Acupuncture, by the way, can help you manage hot flashes too. So that's another great tool to use. And I'm a huge fan of acupuncture. And I think it has, the whole field of Chinese medicine has just so many incredible answers to some of these symptoms for sure. Okay, I want to remind you guys that a lot of these type of questions, but even more, we tackle in the Superwoman Circle. So for those of you that have joined the circle, the topic for November has been menopause. We have been dialing into menopause, but coming up in December, it's all about gut health and digestion and how to clean your gut, have a healthy gut, and have a healthy liver. And when we go into January, we're going to be tackling weight loss and detox in the new year. I'm talking about, really how to wrap our heads around some of that stuff. But the circle is amazing. We've got women from all over the country and all over the world joining in, sharing their stories of what works for them, asking questions so everyone can learn from each other, getting guides and recipes and all kinds of other goodies along the way. So if you haven't joined the circle, join the circle. We're doing a coaching session tonight. You're not too late for that. We can dig into these topics in more detail and even ask some of the personal questions about you that you may be wanting to get the answers for and you're not really ready to bring them up in the doctor's office yet or anywhere else. So hopefully I'll see you in the circle tonight. If not, thank you for joining me today on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. I love you guys. Thank you for creating such a interested and curious community. I think the only way to sift through the massive amounts of information everywhere is to do some of these type of sessions so that everyone can orient and follow their own personal roadmap to wellness. All right, I will see you guys next time. Take care.